Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring; CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. This episode is powered by SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District's Shine Awards program benefiting nonprofits for energy efficiency. Apply today. Imagine finally getting the keys to your own apartment after foster care, homelessness, or involvement in the juvenile justice system. Now imagine walking inside. No bed, no table, no dishes, no towels. Nothing that makes that empty space feel like a home. Like a functional household. That's the gap Make It Happen for Yolo County is working to fill. In this episode, I talk with founder and board president Jan Judson and executive director Cathi Schmidt about furniture poverty, about dignity, independence, and the simple but powerful idea that getting someone housed is only part of the solution. For young adults already facing enormous challenges, the basic necessities of a home can provide something even more important: stability, confidence, and a better foundation for whatever comes next. It's a need most of us probably never think about. After this conversation, you will. Jan Judson, Cathi Schmidt, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thanks for having us, Jeff. We really appreciate the opportunity.
It's nice to be here. Thanks.
You are such a unique organization, and I think it's one that people don't think about. And I was recently having a conversation with some people about foster youth and the fact that maybe we're making a little bit of a dent with some of the, donations and organizations to get foster youth into housing. I mean, we know it's a big, big issue for these kids transitioning, and that's great. And we don't think about the next step. We get these kids into a living quarters, and then what? Thank you very much. There you go. And literally that's all they have is the roof over their head. But they don't have any means to get the rest of the pieces to make it a home. And somewhere along the line, Jan, you saw this. Tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
In a nutshell, I'm a retired nurse practitioner, Jeff, and during the course of my practice, I was in different settings like the emergency department, urgent care. I did pediatrics for a couple of years, family practice for more. And during those times, I occasionally would run into situations where I would see foster youth that were brought in for various different reasons. And not all the time, but enough of the time, it seemed like there was a disconnect between the youth that was brought in, and they were all different ages, and the adult that was bringing, or adults that were bringing them in. And that was really troubling me. And I remember one specific incident where there was a young infant who just wanted to interact, was in a car seat on the exam table, and the parents or guardians were across the exam room just paying no attention to this child at all. And it just broke my heart. And I've always had a soft spot for underrepresented groups like animals and the elderly and children that can't speak for themselves. And so I kept saying, I have to do something, I have to volunteer. And I have 2 children. My daughter was a senior in high school. She said, you keep saying you're going to do something, you need to do it. And she was right. So I volunteered with UC Davis Guardian Scholars as an adult mentor. And I also joined another organization called the California Youth Connection. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a nonprofit in the state of California that is driven and led by foster youth, former and current foster youth. And they work to create legislative change around foster issues. And so I came in as an adult supporter, and that increased my awareness of made me more aware of the needs of that group. We subsequently had a fundraising event. I met one of our first board members, who was a co-founder, Elliot Jones. And he at that time was a Yolo Casa with a transition age youth was his child that he was supporting. And he was the one that brought it to my attention that while resources, as you mentioned, existed for housing, some for food, some resources for clothing, education definitely has some, but nothing for what we call to address furniture poverty, which is the inability to afford, access, or maintain the basic items needed for a home to make it safe, like a bed to sleep in. So we started it informally through his garage, word of mouth, just accepting anything we could find. And in 2014, we became a 501c3. We were very fortunate to start to receive funding, and we served 12 youth that first year, and we're hoping to serve 72 this year.
Which is just amazing. And we'll get into the conversation about steps and how this all happens in just a minute. But as a founder who recognized that, and now you've given, this year it'll be 70, each year there's been some compounding or growing number from 12 to 72, 12 years old now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've certainly crossed the hurdle of existence and sustainability, which we'll talk about too. But let's address who it is you serve. Is there an age cutoff, entry? We know it's transitioning foster youth, but tell me what that looks like.
If I may, Jeff, we do actually serve transition age youth. They don't have to just be foster youth.
Thank you.
We also work with youth that have experience with the juvenile justice system. And we also help youth that have been unhoused. To answer your question, we work with the ages of between 16 and 24.
Okay.
And the 24 upper limit is to accommodate those youth that have been in foster care and are transitioning past that. So the older young adults,
right,
if you will, allow me that. We only take referrals. So all our clients are referred to us by referring partner agencies. And all of them have to be connected to Yolo County in some way. And the reason that's important, they don't have to be in Yolo County, because we know as of about 3 years ago, and I'm sorry, I don't have updated data after that, but I know from the Transition Age Youth Unit in Yolo County through Child Welfare Services that about 30% of youth were able to be housed in Yolo County because of housing availability. 30 were housed about within 30 miles outside Yolo County, and the remaining third-ish percent would have been over 30 miles away, which is, again, a need for housing. But so
and transportation at that point.
And absolutely, transportation is another huge issue. Thank you for mentioning that. So anyway, they have to be connected to Yolo County some way. So a student, they have to have they may not live in Yolo County, they may live in Sacramento, but their case manager or social workers in Yolo County. Those are the kind of criteria we have. Cathi, am I missing anything?
And we try to make sure that they're not receiving duplicate services from another organization.
Yes. Thank you.
That's really our criteria for the youth.
Okay. And it is Yolo County specifically at this point in time.
Yes, because we're a really small organization, and we really honor the fact that if we say we are going to serve someone, then we will do it, and we have done it. But if we were to open it up to a different county, we would not have the capacity.
Sure.
The need is tremendous. And we know that there's far more need in Yolo County than we have identified. And that's one of our goals ultimately is to try to outreach even more with our referring agencies and new referring agencies, especially in rural Yolo County, maybe more in West Sacramento.
I can't help but ask, and there may be a better point in the conversation to do it, but now seems appropriate. Just the need is so great in Yolo County. It certainly exists in Sacramento or Placer or El Dorado. The need has to be there everywhere.
It is.
Has there been, I'm certainly unfamiliar if there's another organization doing some similar work in the other counties, or have they approached you to say, can we look at some collaborative or affiliation opportunities in these other counties?
We have not been approached. I love that idea. Practically speaking, I'm not sure we could work on that right now, but there are other organizations. I know in Sacramento, there's a few, and I'm sorry, I can't probably come up with the correct
That's okay.
names.
As long as I just haven't run across them.
I'm not sure that all of them, we have a van that was donated to us, which was a lifesaver. Thank you, Ron Brown Construction. We do not charge anything for our services, and we deliver the items to the youth's home. If they are within, we're a little flexible on that, but we try to make it within 20 miles of where we are located in Davis. We have our storage units. So, but there is also another organization in Solano County and Fairfield that does similar work. And I mentioned that I think there's 2 in Sacramento. There might be one in Placer too, but there is nobody else in Yolo County doing this.
Yeah, and they might make themselves known after the episode releases too, because it'd be nice to know that they exist for each county, because I'm sure people are going to hear this and go, but I'm not in Yolo County.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or my organization serves foster youth or youth who could use the service.
Absolutely.
But oh my gosh, what a great concept.
Yep.
And is there another?
And Jeff, if I may, furniture poverty is not limited to transition age youth. We sometimes will get other organizations reaching out to us. Often with, we recently had this phone call from a man who identified himself as being on SSI, and he said, I really need a sofa. And another organization referred me to you. And I said, can you please tell me how old you are? And he said, I'm 45. And a few months ago, we had a social worker working for our hospital that had a couple that had previously been unhoused that needed everything.
Sure.
And we were the only organization that they came to. We can't. And I say that sadly, but we really can't. We have to be true to our funders, and we have to be true to ourselves. We don't have the capacity.
And I would imagine at some point too, we're going to start to see this age migration, since seniors now are some of the most impacted people for homelessness.
Exactly.
They're on fixed incomes. They may even own their own home, but they can't pay the property taxes. Next thing you know, they're out. And what do they do?
Exactly.
So it's going to be an interesting dynamic as we see how all this changes over the course of the next couple of years in terms of demand and what it looks like. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you provide. What can one expect when they've engaged with you in their vacant residence?
Yeah, sure. So just to follow up on one thing that Jan said, I think one thing that also makes us slightly unique compared to some of the other organizations that we do know exist but have slightly different models is we really make an effort to make this as simple as possible for these youth, because they often have had too many barriers. So as soon as the referring partner identifies that they potentially have a youth that has some need, we send them a wish list, and the wish list has over 100 items, and it's really every single item you would need to furnish a small 1-bedroom apartment.
And give us some examples, because we tend to think, well, yeah, not that, but in your case, yes, that too.
Yep. So it includes really everything from your dishes, your silverware, your pots and pans, a vacuum, cleaning supplies, the items that you need to set up a bathroom, bath towels, rug, curtain, shower curtain, a desk, a lamp, a chair, and then some living room items, a bookcase, potentially a nightstand, a dresser, dining room table, a couple of dining room chairs, really everything. And then we also, we received some feedback from a survey that we asked them to fill out. And we identified a couple of years ago that another item that they really would love to have made available is a bike. So we've added a bicycle, a lock, a light, and a helmet. And that has been incredibly popular for all the youth we serve. So if the youth were to select every single item that's on our wish list, and some do, it's roughly about a $3,000 expense that they don't have to. And the most important thing, and I think Jan mentioned this, is we provide the transportation, we bring it to them, which is often also a huge problem for them. It's easy to say, well, just go down to the Salvation Army and get a couch. But if you're on foot, that's not possible. Right. So this really solves a huge problem for them.
How about discovery? How do people learn of you? Or is it because you do it through partners that there's just enough demand there that you don't really have to worry about discovery at this point?
We do need to worry about awareness.
Okay.
Because I was just picking up a furniture donation late last week, and we were working and someone stopped by. They saw our van, which has our logo on it. And the thing we hear commonly, and it's not active trying on our part, we laugh. And this woman came up, she said, I've never heard of you guys. It's like, yeah, I know, but we're really trying. We have worked, Jeff, to increase awareness about us through social media accounts. We're on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn. We are really trying to get more articles in the local media. So the Davis Enterprise, the Daily Democrat in Woodland, the West Sacramento News Ledger, and the Winters Express ran. We're very grateful for a series of articles earlier this year that they ran. We are grateful for the opportunity here, but it's kind of a constant. I don't want to call it a battle. It's not that, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I think we're doing better than we were. But we just continue to do that. And we do speaking engagements to community groups. We're very grateful for that. Like,
so be the Rotary,
Seroptimus. We're going to be the beneficiary of a soup night with the International Davis Seroptimus in October, I believe it is. We're very grateful for that. And that's an opportunity not only to receive financial support, but to network with people and increase awareness through there. So we're trying to do everything we can.
And that's a great segue to the next question, which is collaboration. Who do you work with? Who are the organizations that are in and out of your organization and shared reciprocity, so to speak, whether it be through funding or through awareness or through donations? What would it look like?
Yeah. So kind of twofold. We have our referring partners that we are constantly trying to stay in contact with, make sure that we're fresh. And those could be the CASA organization.
And for the benefit of those who don't know, CASA, we mentioned a little bit earlier, is court-appointed special advocates, people who are the representative for that youth and the court system, because it can be really difficult to navigate. So they have this mentor in between.
Yes.
Right. It can be a social worker through Child Welfare Services. It could be a principal through the high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So the referring partners, as Jan already mentioned, we're in constant contact with. In terms of there's other partners that potentially could be referring partners, but also help provide wraparound services. So when we have this engagement with a youth, we take that opportunity to make sure that they're aware of the Yolo Crisis Nursery that provides respite care, that they're aware of agencies that provide medical, Communicare, OLA. So it's very important to us that we take that opportunity and we have brochures on hand and we let them know that there are other agencies out there that can also provide services to them. And in some cases, we'll make the introduction so that we can make sure that there will be some follow-up.
And those are on the referring side. Are there other organizations that aren't on the referral side, but are on the contribution side, whether it be furniture or donation or whatever, not unlike the Rotary or the civic groups that exist?
Yeah. Almost all the service organizations, whether it's Rotary, Odd Fellows, it could be the Davis Co-op, for instance, that does the roundup for a cause.
Register.
Yes.
So many organizations we participate in activities like that or events like that. So
Food bank even to where you're supporting and communicating with the kids to.
I would say, not so much food.
Okay.
I feel like, and maybe this is unique, most of the youth that we serve seem to be knowledgeable about food resources.
Okay, I was going to say maybe that is too tangential, but the good news is they know.
Yeah.
They understand, so they've already got that covered. This is the piece that they didn't understand.
For the most part, I would say, yeah, I think it continues to be a challenge for many of our clients. I think we don't do a deep dive into stories when they come to the storage unit. That's our purpose, is to provide them with something to furnish their homes. And many times
with
that's
a
an
sense of
uncomfortable
sense of dignity,
subject.
right?
And so
We don't need.
Absolutely. And so, but like Cathi was saying, we also work with Shores of Hope in West Sacramento, and they actually have housing for transition age youth and others. They have a child care center there. They have case management. They have a clothing and food closet there. It's a really wonderful organization. We've worked pretty closely with them as a referring agency for a number of years.
That's what we want to hear. This collaborative between organizations has become so significant, especially as budgets have been getting cut and grants are thinner than they used to be, and people are realizing, my goodness, I can't do this alone. Yes, correct, you can't.
Right.
And it's better that you do it together.
Yep.
And so we're seeing more and more of that outreach for organizations of like services, not duplicative, but complementary.
Yep.
And that's it in a nutshell.
And actually, we just attended an event yesterday that the Yolo County Office of Education facilitated, where lots of nonprofits were there. And we were able to identify that although we may have, if there's a pie and we've sliced out 7 pieces of the pie, one big piece that is missing are life skills. How do you get a driver's license? How do you, if you don't have documents, if you don't have a birth certificate, if you don't have these documents, how do you facilitate things that most of us just sort of take for granted? So we do come together and we identify, okay, that's a huge gap and we have to address it. So there's.
And I can imagine too, especially our youth who are immigrants, who are really struggling to figure out the system, regardless of where they are in their tenure in the country. It's still not easy.
Yeah.
You have all these barriers, whether it be language or financial or just understanding, directionally where to go. And there are organizations that help with that too, where I can see that supportive nature of, okay, I got a place and everybody's happy for you. And you don't want to share that I don't have anything in it. I can't have anybody come over. I can't really do anything other than sleep
on it.
One of our board members, Jeff, is a former foster youth and a former UC Davis Guardian Scholar. And they had that exact situation when they came to Davis. Their desk was a cardboard box. Their dining room table was a cardboard box. Their storage was cardboard boxes. And they have shared how they were so self-conscious about that situation as a very young adult transitioning into the university, that they would do everything they could not to have people over to the apartment. They would go there. But socialization, and that's another thing, is that may sound simple or cavalier, but socialization at that age is hugely important. I would think it would be fair to say for most people, perhaps not all, but that's a huge impact of not having those items, which we can supply. And we know that it makes a difference with mental health as well as physical health too. I mean, I literally served a young man several years ago, and he literally had nothing in the apartment. And we brought all this stuff. He was sleeping on a sleeping bag on the floor with his backpack for a pillow. He had nothing in the kitchen to cook with or eat with. It was bare. He had a stove, but he couldn't use it because he had nothing. And so when we left, he had all the items that Cathi mentioned earlier. And that was really, I know he was very happy about it, but it's rewarding for us to be able to provide that.
And that's a great point too. There's a whole mental health issue
100%.
that we're here too, because these are young adults. And to your point, this is really a transition to whether it be workforce or graduate school or whatever it may be that they move on to. And to be able to have that sense of pride that I'm not homeless in my car, but I'm not that much better. They're not going to say anything because they're happy to have that roof over their head.
I think that's a really important point you just made.
We'll return to the conversation with Jan Judson and Cathi Schmidt following a few short messages from those who help these organizations be seen and heard.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of 5 Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, 5 Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're 5 Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back-office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back-office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com, and contact me directly at DTEAT@CXORE.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit CXORE.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com.
Make our communities bright with Smudge Shine Awards. Now through July 31st, your nonprofit can apply for a chance to receive funding for projects that improve and revitalize communities in our service area. We're seeking proposals that support zero carbon workforce development, affordability and community resiliency, economic development, and STEM education. Smudge Shine Awards are competitive and funds are limited. Submit your proposal by July 31st. Learn more at smud.org/shine.
Let's talk about funding. How are you funded?
Yeah, so we are 100% funded by grants and private donation. About 50% of our funding comes from grants. So we, like most nonprofits, spend an enormous amount of time writing grants. But we have some very loyal and very generous supporters in Yolo County. So we're very grateful for that. We also have foundational grantors. And they represent about 25% of our funding. And then the remaining 25 is independent personal donations. And again, a fairly good, loyal base of funders, but relatively small amounts. And we do not receive any kind of public financing at all. It's all private.
To your credit today.
Yep.
There's so many people who have relied on either federal grants, and they're struggling. They're in some cases really in trouble because of the significance of those grants that they relied on drying up,
right,
and gone away, and that's going to trickle down to the state, and then they don't have these varied resources. And we all know that if you had the option, one big to service everything or many littles. Give me the many littles, because if I lose a couple of those, I'm okay. But if I lose that one big, we're in trouble.
Right.
So to your credit, and it's a relatively small budget. 12 years, you've been working. It's been growing, each year to the point that are you all volunteer at this point?
No, we're not all volunteer. We have 3 paid positions. Myself being one of them as the executive director. I work part-time. We added an administrative assistant who also works part-time. And then we also have a UC Davis former foster youth intern who only works a couple of hours a week. Maybe over the summer we'll increase the hours. But between the 3 of us, we're a little bit less than 1 full-time equivalent. And then we have about 18 volunteers, and we have a very active board. So really the heavy lifting is the volunteers and the board.
And no pun intended. I mean, I hear Jan saying just she's out with
every day.
In the truck.
Every day she's out.
Yes. This is your board president, and she's out delivering the heavy lifting, right?
We got to keep up that strength training.
That's right.
But I do want to say we're sort of at an inflection point right now because, it's been sort of on the heart and the backs of these people like Jan that are very passionate about this, but it's not a sustainable model. And I think we really do recognize we need to add more probably paid employees if we're going to continue the growth that we've experienced over the last few years. Yep.
And we know the need is out there.
Yeah.
Right.
We want to be able to accommodate that in a not bare bones way. I mean,
And not burn out
and not burn out. Yes.
Tier based.
Excellent point. Yeah.
This is a fun question, and I can see where the input's going to come from, I think, but it's somebody likes what you're doing. They see the need and the opportunity for growth. And they say, hey, you know what? I want to give you guys a blank check if you give me a good enough reason to write it. What would it look like? What would be that vision if money were no object?
Well, there would be a whole lot of numbers in that blank check. No, we just recently had a strategic planning session, and it was interesting because we wanted to identify our vision. And I think our goal very simplistically was we would love for all eligible Yolo County under-resourced Yolo County transition age youth that needed our services to be able to have them, which, as we just alluded to, would require a whole lot more involvement and probably, as Cathi said, staffing on our part. We would love to be able to provide that to them. That's what my vision looks like. And we identified that. That was our board and Cathi.
Okay. And that's an easy visualization. Now, we don't know what that number is.
We don't.
Specifically, but we do know that the opportunity is there. That does have about a 90% finite opportunity. If somebody said, here it is, you know you can get to the majority. You may not get to everybody 100%, but you can get to the majority of them with provision. And so I think for somebody who's listening to hear that and say, hey, this is actually a problem we can really come close to solving. Whereas some of them are so difficult and in some cases so esoteric, we know we're not going to, cure cancer with an unlimited check, those sorts of things. We're not going to cease homelessness. We've already proven unlimited money doesn't fix the problem. But this is one that really, really could be, as we see in some cases too with some of the food insecurity. Enough money at it in a proper and well-guided way could really bring that problem to a very small problem as opposed to a really big one. And that's what I like about yours is it's almost definable.
It's pretty, the only word I can come up with is maybe limited. And I don't mean that in a negative way,
No.
but it's defined.
Yes.
As I think you're saying.
Yes.
Jeff. So yeah. Yes.
And that's rare that we can actually put some guardrails on the need and say, if this were to happen, we could really fix some of this issue. And then we know what the impact is into the community. Now you have a healthier student, employee, mental well-being, family in some cases, to where before, where were they? They might have been on the cusp of not able to make it, even though they had a roof over their head, to where they might fall back into homelessness. And so it's just it's one of those that we can wrap our heads around. So I like that. I like that as a vision to say, well, just let us get them. We'll do it county by county. We'll figure this out.
I think I'm challenged with what is the number. If we know what the cost to serve is, which we have a pretty good idea, I think what we don't know is what we don't know. And those come mostly from more rural areas where some of these youth are just under the radar, or we haven't managed to connect with the people that can identify exactly who they are. And if they're not reaching out for services, why are they not reaching out? What's that barrier? For me, it's still a little bit unknown. So is the number 300, 500, 1,000? I'm not 100% sure. We know if we're serving 72, it's a much bigger number than that.
Yes.
That we do know.
Right.
Is it 4 times, 5 times, 6 times? I'm not 100% sure we know the answer to that. We suspect it's probably 5 times, I think, right? And that's just a guess.
And
that's a guess.
Even at 5 times, simple math, 350.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we know what the average cost is. You mentioned it, $2,500, $3,000 per 350 times 3,000. Now we know what the number is.
Right.
That number would solve a tremendous percentage.
Yep.
And that's definable. So many are undefinable.
Right.
Whereas yours is. That's the beauty of this situation. And I think, just as we're talking here, that's fundable. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but there could be somebody out there that says, I understand this. You know what? That's it.
Right.
I'm of means.
Very tangible, right?
Yes, I can wrap my head around that. That's a number and that fixes this, or at least a great percentage of it. My goodness.
It would fix our portion of their life, their lives. But like we alluded to earlier or mentioned earlier, we were trying to put them in touch with the resources that Cathi mentioned.
This is one problem
and this is
resolved.
one
Yes.
part of their life. But yes, I really appreciate your saying that because to be really honest, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But I like it a lot. Thank you for bringing that
To
up.
go back to answering your question, if somebody said, I'll write you a check for $1 million, I'd almost rather somebody said, I'll write you a check for $200,000, but I'll give it to you over 3 years and give us that opportunity that we know that's an effort we don't have to make every year, right? Because
To chase budget.
that's what I think nonprofits, that's our
Everybody's
demise.
problem. Yes.
Everybody's problem.
Sustainability is an issue.
It is.
Yeah.
And capacity building. Those are the two, and they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
It's almost like if everybody could have this massive endowment that they could fund the organization off of, and then the rest is incremental. And I don't mean in incremental little. I mean, incremental could be large
Right.
based on the scope and scale of the organization, but that's it. And I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because so many organizations, well, this gets us through the end of the year.
Right. But we can't see past that, right?
No, we need to look at the next 5.
Right.
This problem isn't going away. So we want to be here to work within that framework to support it and work toward a solution. Let's come back to reality. And that would be the greatest need today. Where do you see that greatest need?
For
the organization,
not for
yes.
our clients.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
To be just blatantly honest, exactly as we're talking about now, it would be financial, and with a secondary of we need to really increase our volunteer base as well. In 2023, Jeff, that was the year that we brought Cathi on, which was one of the best moves we've ever made. Thank you, Cathi. And we had a targeted outreach with a former volunteer working with our UC Davis Guardian Scholar intern at the time. So they reached out to some of the partners we mentioned and some others we did not, the referring partners. And in 2023, we served 40 youth. And because of that targeted outreach, there's no question in my mind, we had wonderfully successful targeted outreach. The next year, we served 60. That was a 50%. I'm not the numbers person. 50%.
It is. That's correct.
Increase. And it really strained us because we were smaller then than we are now. And it was like, oh, there really is a huge need out there because this was just skimming the surface. But B, we need to have more capacity. Mm-hmm. So if we're looking at developing corporate partnerships, which we've never done before, but it would be financial because we relied on community furniture donations up until the past few years. We were able to completely offer our clients donated furniture from the Yolo community, which has been incredibly supportive and gracious. But we serve too many now, and the furniture donations aren't keeping up. So we've had to start purchasing furniture because we don't want to tell them they can't have a sofa or a dining room table. So we're purchasing those now. We've additionally, as Cathi mentioned, hired people. We were all volunteer until 2023. So we've hired people, so we have salaries now, and the prices are going up. Mm-hmm. So the financial support is our greatest need, I would say.
Absolutely.
And then again, a close second would be having volunteers. And we have an incredible group of volunteers. I am so grateful to them. We really do. I mean, not only do they get the work done, but they're a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun in our, you wouldn't think that cleaning out a storage unit, but it can be fun. So, which we're doing again, thanks to Nugget Market and Food for Less. They are going to come and help us next week, right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
What's the movie that they go to storage units and they clean them out and sometimes they find
treasures,
fortunes and treasures inside these storage units? You have to get in alignment with the people that you actually are doing.
That's a good idea.
Real storage with and say, those three, we've never seen them open. Can we get in there? Who knows? There might be something in there for you.
Storage wars.
That's it. Storage wars. Yes. Yes. For you, when you look at it, what does the impact of the organization look like? What does success look like? Is there a story or two you can share about somebody who has been a beneficiary?
Well, I think there's two different levels for me. One is Cathi and I both meet the youth personally at the storage units along with other volunteers. And I don't think there's ever been a time in the 12 years that I've been doing this where the youth weren't exceedingly grateful. And one thing that I hadn't realized until I started doing this work, because I grew up with a lot of support. I had a family, I had community, I had friends that would help me out if I needed it. And when we were able to buy our small appliances and many of the items that we offer brand new, getting something that no one else has used in an unopened box that's new.
And they get to pick. Do they want the green one, the white one, the black one? I mean, those are huge.
Choice is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's agency. It's dignity. It's like you choose. And sometimes they'll say, well, I'm not sure. It's like, I'm not making that decision. You have to make that decision in a supportive, gentle way. So one of the successes, to get back to your question, for me is just not every day, but when we serve a youth, just the looks on their faces, it is so rewarding. And the second one is seeing where they go. So one of the stories that Cathi and I were sharing is we have a youth that was a Guardian Scholar who is now in grad school at Berkeley. We had another youth that we served that was accepted into, I don't speak the aeronautical engineering maybe at MIT. Mm-hmm. We have another youth that graduated from UC Davis, and she decided that she wanted to be an electrician. So she went on from there and is...
I saw her on the website.
Yes. And delightful. And then another, no longer a youth, but many years ago, a Guardian Scholar, graduated from UC Davis. She put herself through school with no support at all, decided she wanted to be a social worker, went on to a different university, obtained her master's in social work, has been working for the Veterans Administration as a social worker, working with homeless veterans, and then recently took guardianship of her two very young nephews as a single parent. And to me, that is, I don't know if there's any harder work than that. And those are all incredible success stories. And so those are just a few.
Did you want to add anything there, Cathi?
No, I think...
Okay, I wasn't sure if you...
Yeah, no, I think she nailed it.
Good. So this is the point in the conversation where we deviate a little bit. We're going to go beyond the mission.
Okay.
And this is to give people a little bit of an understanding about you and the personal part of, because we're humans, and we oftentimes, and certainly as nonprofit leadership, you tend to absorb the cause, and it's always with you. It doesn't ever go away, but you do have a human side to you, and you have families, and you have things that you do that aren't all wrapped up in the organization. So we're going to start with you, Jan. I'll start easy, and then I'll get them a little bit more difficult.
Thank you.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Okay, as in your blouse. First car?
A Datsun station wagon, also blue.
Today, that would be worth a fortune. Did you have a mentor? And if so...
I think not a specific mentor, but I was surrounded, as I mentioned before, with people that supported me. My parents let me, growing up, we tried all sorts of different things. And when I made decisions to try something career-wise or education-wise, I always had the support. And so not a specific mentor, no, but through examples, just knowing great people who were very philanthropic and involved in the community and wanted to do things for others. I think that was probably my biggest incentive. My parents were that way, and we knew a lot of people like that.
Okay. Guilty pleasure?
Milk chocolate. I'm not really a dark chocolate fan, but I really like milk chocolate.
Okay, so milk chocolate is your guilty pleasure.
Yes.
And when it's a rough day, what fills your cup?
Working out in the yard or reading. I love reading. Sometimes just going for a walk and exercising.
Okay. Cathi? Stairs or elevator?
Yeah, I like the stairs.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl. These are easy.
Oh, no. I'll get there. I'll get there. Comfort food.
Wow. Comfort. Probably black licorice.
Really?
Yeah.
Milk chocolate and black licorice. Okay. That's better.
I have it hidden in my house in various places, like a chipmunk.
We know that's better for you than red vines because you're on a drive, podcast, music, or silence.
Music.
What would be one thing somebody would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh. Surprised to learn about me. I really have no talent. Talents.
That's not true.
No, it is really true. I mean, everybody usually has something they can do. I don't have that. Nope, don't have one.
All right. Then in that case, hobby. What do you do away from work?
Yeah, I do play tennis. I really enjoy playing tennis. Wouldn't say it's a hidden talent, but I do. And I like to work in the yard. I think like Jan, if I've had a tough day, working in the yard always feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. You guys did good on that.
Thank you.
If somebody wants to support the organization, what's the best way to learn more, donate, get information?
Yeah. So coming to our website really, I think is the best, fastest way, mihyolo.org. And then there's tabs at the top if they want to donate furniture, if they want to learn more about us, if they want to make a monetary donation. Another thing we've added is links to retailers so they can make in-kind donations through Target or IKEA or Amazon, where we have our wish list posted.
Oh, there's your corporate partners. They're starting to engage then. Oh, okay.
We'd love to do more with
Okay.
them, but yeah, I don't think I'd put them at partner level yet.
Yeah.
But they
You know, we'll get them there.
They're
Well, thank you.
benefiting
Yes.
from the organization.
Yes.
Walmart too is
Yeah,
is
and a
we
Walmart
purchase a lot of our things from Target and Walmart
Sure.
and IKEA and a little bit now with Wayfair too.
But that's the best way. Of course, they can always call us as well, but and the phone number and all of our social media links are on
the
our
website.
Yep.
And we will put those in the show notes so that if somebody's listening, driving, happens to be doing something else, they can always go back to the show notes and the link will be there as well. So
Wonderful.
it'll make it easy. You have hit on a service I think that is so desperately needed, often overlooked, not understood, and not realized, but helping these youth get what they need to function once they get a roof over their head. The great news is we are making some inroads to get them a place,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that second part of it that once they're in, now what? And your identification of that, Jan, 12 plus years ago, to the point of creating an organization and seeing that organization now 12 years later that has geometrically grown and looks like it will continue to grow to a point that we came up with in the conversation that maybe is definable, is really an accomplishment. And for what you've done for Yolo County and for those youth in providing that sense of dignity, that sense of home that they may not otherwise have had, is extremely commendable. So thank you for what you do. And Cathi, we're thrilled that you're now there, in a capacity.
Thrilled that Cathi is there.
Thank you.
And it certainly wasn't just me, Jeff, and I appreciate very much, but the former board members and the current
Absolutely,
board
yes.
members, I mean, it really does take a
Team.
village. And that's why we were mentioning our partners, because they're so valuable in so many ways. And
Yeah.
we all want to work towards assisting the youth, because transitioning into young adulthood and independence is tough for anybody.
Yeah.
It's a tough
Especially
time.
now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was just going to say tougher today than it's ever been.
Agreed.
Especially
And being a young
in
adult
California.
is challenging. And yes, now, but if we can just help out, as you mentioned, with, I mean, maybe it's not adjust because it does save them some finances, but like you said, it's very definable. And so it's like, we can go in and do this piece. And we really hope that helps them jumpstart towards
Right.
whatever their goals are.
Yeah.
And to the team, the volunteers, everybody that's involved in the
Absolutely
organization.
essential. Yeah.
Well, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the opportunity.
And let's
Can
go
you-
make something better.
Thank you.
very
We hope
much.
to do that.
This episode has been powered by SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District's Shine Awards program benefiting nonprofits for energy efficiency. Apply today. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.